David Coldwell, I swear to God, if you don't say something right now. I'm leaving, for real this time, and I'm never coming back. Then I saw them. Asterisk floating across my vision like subtitles on a bad Netflix show asterisk. Oh my God, here it comes. The groveling arc. The punishment arc. This is where it gets good. Chase her, you idiot. She's carrying your baby. He's going to transfer all his company's shares to her. I'm crying. This man is too pure for this world. He dumps the fiancée too, the rich childhood sweetheart. Serves her right. Even when her dad cuts off their business deal, he doesn't even blink. He'd let his company go bankrupt for her. That's what love looks like. Why is he just standing there? Run after her. She's about to break character. I stared at the floating text, then blinked again. Still there. What the hell? I muttered. The woman, Melissa, my brain supplied, stopped mid-stride and turned back. What did you just say? Nothing. I rubbed my temples. Just headache. He's faking it. Look at him, trying to seem unaffected. We see through you, David. Grovel. Say something. Call her back. She's literally waiting for you. I looked at Melissa. She was standing by the door now, one hand on the handle, clearly poised to make a dramatic exit, but she wasn't leaving. She was watching me, waiting for something. Expecting something. Then it hit me. I wasn't David Coldwell. Well, I was, technically, but I was also someone else. Someone who'd read this exact story. This exact train wreck. I was inside the book, and the book was a disaster. Let me break this down. I've been dropped into the body of a billionaire CEO who's about to throw away everything. His company, his fiancée, his family, his actual arm for a woman who drugged him, got pregnant, and is now using that pregnancy as leverage to take over his entire life. In the original story, David Coldwell is what you might call a golden retriever with a trust fund. He's so pathologically responsible that when Melissa says, I'm pregnant, it's yours, his brain short circuits into must provide, must protect, must sacrifice all personal boundaries and financial assets. He chases her, he grovels. He transfers his company shares, cuts off his childhood fiancé, goes to war with his parents, and gets his arm hacked off by Melissa's insane father when he tries to negotiate like a reasonable person. And how does she repay him? She dumps him for being too damaged and hands over his company to her foreign boyfriend like a used car. I read this garbage once and wanted to projectile vomit. IT wasn't just bad, it was morally offensive. The narrative kept trying to frame Melissa as this tragic, misunderstood heroine while she systematically dismantled every single person who tried to help her. The comment section was full of people cheering her on like she was some kind of feminist icon, as if stealing a man's entire life savings because he should have known better was a legitimate life strategy. And now here I was living it. Why isn't he moving? This is the part where he begs. Where's the begging? I took a breath, then another. My head was clearing, and with clarity came something else. Cold, calculating rage. Melissa was still hovering by the door, clearly frustrated that her exit wasn't getting the reaction she wanted. David, she said, her voice strained. I'm serious, I'm leaving. I'm going to raise this baby alone on my own terms, in a cardboard box if I have to. I don't need your money, I don't need your pity, I just need... You need to go, I said flatly. She froze. What? Did he just... HOLD on what? I stood up from the couch, brushed off my Armani suit, and looked her dead in the eye. You said you're leaving. You said it like 6 times. I'm not stopping you. So, leave. Her face cycled through about 12 emotions in 3 seconds. Shock, confusion, indignation, something that might have been panic. You're really going to let me walk out? Well, I'm pregnant with your child. Correction, you're pregnant with a child. The paternity is questionable at best. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. I can't believe you. After everything we've been through. After all the promises you made. What promises? I barely remember last week. You drugged me, remember? Wait, he knows. He knows, but he's not supposed to find out until chapter 40. Plot twist. Melissa's face went white. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. I walked past her and opened the door. You want to be an independent single mother? Great, go be one. I'll even give you a head start. I pulled out my wallet, took out a $100 bill, and pressed it into her palm. For cab fare. She stared at the bill like I'd handed her a live grenade. $100? You're offering me $100. Like I'm some what? Person who came to my apartment uninvited, announced a pregnancy that's statistically unlikely to be mine, and is now trying to guilt-trip me into taking on a lifetime of financial liability. Yeah, that's exactly who I'm treating you like. This is not how it's supposed to go. I came here for groveling. Where's the groveling? He's ruining the story. This was supposed to be my favorite toxic romance. Melissa's composure finally cracked. Her eyes welled up. Real tears this time, not the theatrical ones she'd been deploying earlier. David, pleased that I don't have anywhere else to go. My father, if he finds out I'm pregnant, if he finds out I'm not married, is that my problem? She flinched like I'd slapped her. You used to care. You used to care about everything. What happened to you? I woke up. I closed the door in her face. I watched her on the security camera for the next 20 minutes. She stood outside my penthouse, clutching that $100 bill like it was the last thing tethering her to reality. At first, she seemed to be waiting for me to change my mind. Then she started pacing. Then she sat down on the floor right there in the hallway and pulled out her phone. I could guess what she was doing. Texting her father. Texting her friends. Texting whoever she'd been planning to use as backup for her little escape act. It was exactly the kind of performance that would have worked on the old David. The original David would have seen her sitting there, looking vulnerable, and his stupidly noble heart would have kicked into overdrive. He would have opened that door, pulled her inside, and promised to fix everything, even the things that weren't broken, even the things that were designed to break him. But I wasn't that man. I never had been, even in the body I now occupied. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First, my lawyer. I need a restraining order. Expedited. Yeah, the whole thing. No contact, no proximity, no communication through third parties. Second, my security team. I need someone on her at all times that I don't care what it costs, that I want to know who she talks to, where she goes, who she meets. If she so much as sneezes in the direction of a reporter, I want to know about it. Third, my parents. My mother answered on the second ring. David, I heard she came to your place. Please tell me you didn't do anything stupid. Define stupid. David. I told her to leave. I gave her $100 for cab fare. She's currently sitting in the hallway trying to figure out her next move. There was a long pause on the other end. Then my mother said, carefully, "You're serious." As a heart attack. Darling, what happened? You were ready to marry this woman 3 days ago. You were ready to disown us for her. You called your father a classist dinosaur and told me I didn't understand real love. Yeah, well, I was having a neurological episode. It's over now. She didn't laugh, but I could hear something in her voice, relief, maybe, doubt or hope. Your father will want to hear this. He's been not sleeping well. He thought you were going to throw everything away. I'm not throwing anything away. I'm finally figuring out what I should have seen from the beginning. Wait, he's getting his parents involved. This is supposed to be the part where he burns bridges. This is wrong. This is all wrong. He's supposed to be suffering for his sins. David is literally acting like a sane person right now, and it's making me uncomfortable. I ignored the floating text and continued my conversation with my mother. Can you send the evidence we've been collecting? The receipts from that private investigator, the drug test results, the records from the bar. I want to be ready if she tries anything. Already in your inbox, my mother said. I knew you'd come around eventually. I just didn't think it would be this fast. Neither did I. Later that evening, I got a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, you think this is over? You think you can just throw me away like garbage? I have recordings of every conversation we've ever had. If you don't give me what I want, I'll destroy you. I'll go to the press. I'll tell them you forced yourself on me. I'll tell them you promised me the world and then took it away. You'll be ruined. Your company will be ruined. Your family will be ruined. Is that what you want? Asterisk. I stared at the screen for a moment. Then I typed back. Asterisk, you have recordings of conversations from nights you drugged me? Fascinating. You do realize that's evidence of your own crimes, right? But sure, go to the press. I'll have my lawyer ready. Asterisk. The response was immediate. Asterisk, you're a monster. Asterisk. No, iraplia. Asterisk, I'm just not the idiot you thought I was. Asterisk. I added her number to the block list and went back to reviewing the evidence my mother had sent. It was all there, the drug test results from the hospital, the receipts for the pills, the witness statements from the staff at the bar. The original David had known, deep down, that something was wrong, but he'd chosen not to see it. He'd been so desperate to believe that someone loved him for who he was, not what he had, that he'd let himself be conned by the oldest trick in the book. I wasn't making that mistake. I was going to win this. I was going to take everything she tried to steal, and I was going to make sure she never hurt anyone else again. This is so unsatisfying. Where's the angst? Where's the suffering? I wanted to see him bleed for his choices. The fact that he just walked away is deeply offensive to my sensibilities. Everyone who's mad is literally just mad that he's acting like an actual human being instead of a fictional punching bag. Get out of here with your logic and self-preservation. This is a romance. Romance is about irrational love that ruins your life. Go to hell, I muttered to the empty room. The last of the floating text faded away, replaced by the calm hum of the city outside my windows. I poured myself a glass of whiskey and sat down in the leather armchair by the fireplace. Melissa was still sitting outside my door. She'd moved from the floor to a decorative bench in the hallway, and she'd stopped texting. Now she was just waiting sullen, stubborn, expecting me to break. I raised my glass to the security monitor. Long night ahead, sweetheart. At midnight, she finally got up and walked away. I tracked her on my phone as she took the elevator down, hailed a cab, and headed toward the part of town where cheap motels clustered like desperate last chances. I made a note of the address and sent it to my security team. Then I went to bed. Tomorrow would bring new battles. There would be phone calls. There would be accusations. There might even be lawyers. But for the first time since I'd woken up in this body, I felt something I hadn't expected to feel. Peace. Not the peace of a man who's won. Exactly. The peace of a man who knows which fight he's in. Melissa thought she was playing a game she'd already won. She thought her pregnancy was an unbeatable trump card, that her tragic backstory would make me sympathetic, that her manipulation would make me compliant. She didn't realize she was playing against someone who'd already read the script. And the script, this time, was mine. The first thing I saw when I woke up was my phone, vibrating itself across the nightstand like a dying insect. 11 missed calls. 34 text messages. All from the same number. Melissa. I didn't need to read them to know what they said. I could already picture the frantic pacing, the mascara-streaked cheeks, the desperate performance of a woman who'd just realized her safety net had turned into a bear trap. I unlocked the screen anyway. Asterisk, please answer. Please. I need to talk to you. Asterisk. Asterisk, my father knows. He found out about the pregnancy. He's on his way to the city. David, you don't understand what he's like. He'll kill me. He'll literally kill me. Asterisk. Asterisk, I know I messed up. I know I lied. But you can't let him get to me. Please. Just let me stay at your place for a few days. I'll leave after that. I swear. Asterisk. Asterisk, you owe me that much. You owe me something. Asterisk. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. The floating text from yesterday was gone. Maybe the narrator had given up, or maybe I'd just stopped caring about what a bunch of anonymous commenters thought. Either way, the silence was a relief. But the problem wasn't going away. Melissa was right about one thing. Her father was dangerous. I'd read the original story cover to cover, and I knew exactly what kind of man Bobby Hartwell was. Alcoholic, gambler, violent. A man who treated his daughter like property and expected her to bring him money, like a trained monkey. In the original timeline, he'd shown up at David's penthouse with a machete. Well, a hunting knife, but the result was the same. He'd hacked off David's arm because Melissa told him David wouldn't pay. And then she'd used that injury as an excuse to dump him. I wasn't going to let any of that happen. I picked up the phone and typed back. Asterisk, you want protection? Come to my building. But I'm not letting you in. We'll talk in the lobby, and you'll bring your father with you. Asterisk. Her response was immediate. Asterisk, are you insane? He'll kill me. Asterisk. Asterisk, he'll kill you if you don't show up. He'll kill you if I don't give him what he wants. The only way this ends is if I see him face to face and make a deal. So either you show up with him or you don't show up at all. Your choice. Asterisk. I put the phone down and started getting dressed. 30 minutes later, I was sitting in the lobby of my building, a cup of black coffee in my hand, watching the security monitors. Melissa arrived first, alone, looking like she'd barely slept, her hair a tangled mess and her clothes rumpled, like she'd been wearing them for 3 days straight. She walked up to the front desk and gave my name, and the security guard pointed her toward the seating area where I was waiting. She sat down across from me, hands shaking. You called him. I know you did. You told him where I was. I told him you were pregnant and that you needed financial support, I said calmly. That's not a lie. That's exactly what you told me. You set me up. I gave you exactly what you asked for. You wanted me to take responsibility. I took responsibility. I made sure the father of my alleged child was aware of his daughter's situation. That's what a responsible man does, isn't it? Melissa's face contorted with fury. You're sick. You're actually sick. You knew he'd. I knew he'd come. I also knew you'd been lying to me about everything, and that the only way to get the truth out of you was to make you face the person you're most afraid of. So here we are. She opened her mouth to respond, but before she could get a word out, the main doors of the building swung open. Bobby Hartwell was exactly how I'd pictured him. Tall, barrel-chested, with a face that had been beaten into submission by years of bad decisions and cheap whiskey. He was wearing a stained flannel shirt and jeans that looked like they'd been through a war. His eyes scanned the lobby like he was looking for something to break. Melissa. His voice echoed off the marble floors. There you are, you worthless little. I stood up and stepped between them. Mr. Hartwell, I'm David Coldwell. We need to talk. He looked at me like I was a cockroach that had just asked for a handshake. You're the rich boy who knocked at my daughter? I'm the man who she claims knocked her up. There's a difference. You son of a bitch. He lunged forward, but I'd already signaled the security guards. 2 of them stepped out from behind the reception desk and grabbed his arms. Mr. Hartwell, I'm going to make you a very simple offer, I said, keeping my voice flat. You and your daughter are going to sit down, and we're going to have a conversation about what happens next. If you can't do that, I'll have you escorted out and call the police, your choice. He struggled against the guards for a moment, then went still. Fine. Talk. I gestured to the seating area, and we all sat down, me on one side, Melissa trembling on the other, Bobby glaring at me like I'd personally ruined his life. Which, to be fair, I probably had. Here's what I know, I said. Your daughter came to me 2 weeks ago and told me she was pregnant. She claimed the child was mine. She asked for money, for housing, for protection from you. I've since learned that she obtained the pregnancy through questionable means, specifically by drugging me at a bar and taking advantage of the situation. Bobby's eyes narrowed. You're saying she... I'm saying exactly what you think I'm saying, but that's not the point. The point is, she's been lying to both of us. She told me she was afraid of you. She told you she was getting married to a rich man. She's been playing us against each other for weeks. Melissa's face went pale. That's not what happened. He's lying. He's lying to save himself. I pulled out my phone and opened the folder my mother had sent me. I have receipts. Mr. Hartwell, did I have witness statements from the bar? I have surveillance footage of your daughter purchasing a sedative from an online pharmacy. I have everything. If you want to see it, I'll forward it to your phone right now. Bobby looked at Melissa, and for the first time, I saw something other than rage in his eyes. It was betrayal. You told me you were getting a rich husband. You told me you had it all figured out. And this is what you've been doing. Dad, it's not like that. Shut up. His voice was cold, flat, the kind of voice that promised violence. I leaned forward. Mr. Hartwell, I'm not interested in revenge. I'm not interested in punishment. I want one thing, and one thing only, for your daughter to leave me alone. If she signs a document acknowledging that she has no claim on my assets, and she agrees to never contact me again, I'll pay her a one-time settlement of... How much? $50,000. Up front, in cash. She walks away, I walk away, and we never speak again. Melissa's eyes widened. 50,000? That's nothing. That's more than you'd get if I fought this in court, I said. And believe me, I will fight it. I'll drag you through every deposition, every motion, every hearing. I'll make your life a living hell for the next 3 years, and at the end of it, you'll walk away with nothing but legal bills and a reputation so destroyed you'll never work in the city again. Is that what you want?" She was silent. Bobby was silent too, but I could see him calculating. 50,000 wasn't a fortune, but it was more than he'd get from beating his daughter senseless. And it was money he could take for himself. I'd made sure of that. "Let me think about it," Melissa said finally. "You have 5 minutes." Those 5 minutes turned into 10. Melissa huddled in a corner of the lobby, whispering frantically into her phone, while Bobby paced back and forth like a caged animal. I watched the security monitors and waited. Then, exactly 11 minutes in, everything went sideways. Bobby stopped pacing. He turned to look at me, and the look on his face was different. It wasn't rage anymore. It was greed. 50,000 isn't enough, he said. "I want 200, and I want it in cash, in my hand, within 24 hours. Or I go to the press and tell them you raped my daughter." I felt my jaw tighten. "You'd lie about that?" "I tell the truth," he said. "My daughter says you drugged her. Who are they going to believe? A rich CEO or a poor pregnant girl?" Melissa's head snapped up. "Dad, what are you doing?" "Getting what we deserve, you idiot." He grabbed her arm and yanked her toward him. "You've been playing games with this man, and now you're going to get paid for it, you hear me? 200,000, or we make his life a nightmare." I stood up slowly. "Mr. Hartwell, I've already sent my legal team a copy of every single piece of evidence I just showed you. If you go to the press, I will sue you for defamation. I will sue your daughter for fraud, and I will make sure that the entire world knows exactly what kind of people you are that really what you want." Bobby laughed. "You think I'm scared of lawyers? I've been to jail 3 times. I've been sued twice. I don't give a damn about lawyers." "Maybe not. But you should be scared of the fact that I have a team of ex-military security personnel watching this lobby right now, and they've been recording everything since the moment you walked in. Every word you've said, every threat you've made, I'll make sure that footage ends up on every news station in the city." For a split second, I saw doubt flicker across his face. Then it was gone, replaced by that same ugly greed. "You're bluffing." "I never bluff." And that's when Melissa started screaming. Not a scream of anger or frustration, a scream of pain. She'd been standing there, trying to pull away from her father, and he'd yanked her arms so hard she'd stumbled and hit her stomach on the corner of a marble table. She collapsed to the floor, clutching her abdomen, her face contorted in agony. "Dad, something's wrong. Something's really wrong." Bobby looked down at her, and for a moment, I thought I saw something like concern. But then it was gone, replaced by the same cold calculation. "Stop faking it. Get up." "Dad, I can't. I can't stand. I think I'm bleeding." I didn't move. I didn't help. I watched. Because I knew that this was the moment where the original story had gone wrong. In the original timeline, David had rushed to her side, had called the ambulance, had paid for her hospital bills. And then he'd been sucked back into her orbit, convinced that he was somehow responsible for her pain, that he owed her something. But I wasn't that man. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "I need an ambulance at the Coldwell Tower. A woman appears to be having a medical emergency." I gave my name and address, then hung up. By the time the paramedics arrived, Melissa was unconscious, and her father was standing over her with a look of such pure, primal fury that I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "She's going to lose the baby," I said flatly. "And when she wakes up, she's going to realize that the only person who hurt her is standing right there. You." Bobby's eyes widened. "You did this. You set this up. You knew she'd fall." "I knew she was standing near a table while you were manhandling her. I also knew you wouldn't stop. And now here we are." The paramedics lifted Melissa onto a stretcher and wheeled her toward the doors. Bobby followed them, shouting something about suing me, about making me pay, about how I'd regret this for the rest of my life. I let him shout. I'd already sent the security footage to my lawyer, the police, and 3 local news outlets. By the time the sun set, Bobby Hartwell would be known as the man who beat his daughter into a miscarriage and tried to extort a businessman to cover it up. I went back to my apartment, poured myself a drink, and called my mother. "You saw it all?" I asked. "Every word," she said. "We've already got the press releases drafted. By tomorrow morning, that woman's reputation will be dust." "Good. And my father?" "Your father is booking a trip to the Caymans. He says he needs a vacation from all this drama." I laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd had in days. "Tell him to save me a seat." That night, I received a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of Melissa lying in a hospital bed, tubes in her arms, her face pale and bruised. Below it, a single line. "Asterisk, you think you've won, but I have friends in places you can't imagine, and they'll make sure you pay for what you did. Asterisk." I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I typed back. "Asterisk, your friends can't help you. They can't help your father. They can't help anyone. You've got nothing left, Melissa. And the more you fight, the more you'll lose. Asterisk." I didn't block the number this time. I wanted to see what she would do next. Because I knew she wasn't done. The original story had taught me that much. Melissa Hartwell was a survivor. And survivors didn't give up. They just got smarter and crueler and more desperate. I set my phone down and poured another drink. Let her calm my thought. "I'm ready." The hospital called me at 6 a.m. "Mr. Coldwell, this is St. Mary's. Your visitor, Miss Hartwell, is awake and asking for you. She's quite insistent. Would you like to speak with her?" "No," I said. "I wouldn't. She's also requested that you be informed that she intends to hold a press conference later today. She says she has evidence of wrongdoing on your part. I sat up in bed, the grogginess evaporating instantly. Of course she was going to the media. It was the only card she had left, and she was going to play it like a woman with nothing to lose. Tell her I'll be there at noon, I said, and tell her I'm bringing my lawyer. 3 hours later, I walked into St. Mary's with my attorney, Marcus Webb, and a small recording device hidden in my jacket pocket. Melissa was sitting up in bed, her face pale but her eyes sharp. She'd clearly been preparing. There was a laptop open on her bedside table, and she had a stack of printed papers in her hands. "You came," she said, her voice flat. "I didn't think you would." "Neither did I, but I figured I'd give you one last chance to do this the smart way." "The smart way." She laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You had me arrested, David. You had my father arrested. You sent footage of me bleeding to every news station in the city. I've been getting death threats all morning. The smart way went out the window when you decided to destroy my life." "Your father destroyed your life. I just made sure everyone saw it." Marcus stepped forward. "Ms. Hartwell, my client is here to offer you a final settlement. We're prepared to pay your medical expenses and a nominal sum for your inconvenience, provided you sign a non-disclosure agreement and agree to cease all contact." "A nominal sum? That's what you're calling it?" She picked up her laptop and turned the screen toward me. "I've got a document here that I'm going to release to the press this afternoon. It details everything, the drugs, the pregnancy, the way you manipulated me, the way you framed my father, and I've got audio recordings to back it up." I felt a flicker of unease. "You've got recordings of what, exactly?" "Of you admitting you knew about the pregnancy, of you promising to take care of me, of you saying you'd do anything to make this right." She smiled, and it was the smile of someone who'd been planning this for a long time. "You remember that conversation, don't you? The one in your penthouse, 3 days before you suddenly woke up?" I did remember. The original David had been a pushover, and he'd said all those things. But the original David wasn't the one standing here now. "Those recordings are legally inadmissible," I said. "You obtained them without my consent, in a private setting. In this state, that's a felony." "Then you can press charges," she said. "Go ahead, but the press will have copies before the end of the day. And once they hear your own words, that footage of my father, that starts to look a lot less damning. That IT starts to look like you set him up." Marcus leaned in and whispered in my ear. "She's bluffing. She can't release those recordings without implicating herself in a conspiracy to commit fraud. But if she does, it'll take weeks to clear your name. The damage will be done." I nodded slowly. Then I looked at Melissa and said, "You're right. That conversation happened. But you're forgetting something." "What?" "The drugs. The ones you bought online. The ones you slipped into my drink. Did I have the receipts? Did I have the witness statements? Did I have the surveillance footage of you at the pharmacy? If you release those recordings, I'll release all of that, and we'll see which narrative the press finds more compelling." Her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. "You wouldn't. You'd be admitting you were drugged. That makes you look weak." "I'd be admitting I was a victim. That makes you look like a predator." We stared at each other across the hospital bed. The machines beeped softly. The air conditioning hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a nurse was laughing. Then Melissa said, quietly, "What do you want?" "I want you to disappear. I want you to sign a document acknowledging that the pregnancy was mine, that you attempted to defraud me, and that you'll never contact me again. In exchange, I'll pay your medical bills and give you $10,000 to start over somewhere else. Anywhere else, just not here." She stared at the number on the laptop screen. 10,000. "That's all I'm worth to you. That's all the goodwill you've earned." I could see the battle in her eyes. She wanted to fight. She wanted to keep the war going, but she also knew I had more resources, more evidence, more everything. And her father was in jail, which meant she had no backup. "Fine," she said. "Draw out the papers." The papers were signed 3 hours later. I watched her hand tremble as she wrote her name, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. IT was over. She was out of my life. She was broke, disgraced, and alone. Or so I thought. 3 days later, I was at my office when my secretary buzzed me. "Mr. Coldwell, there's a woman at the front desk. She says she's a reporter for the Chronicle, and she has documents she'd like to discuss with you regarding a Ms. Hartwell." I felt my blood pressure spike. "Tell her I'm not available." "She says she's already spoken with Ms. Hartwell and that she has evidence of a cover-up. She says if you don't see her, she'll run the story without comment." I slammed my fist on the desk. "Send her in." The reporter's name was Carol Dempsey, and she was a bulldog. She walked into my office like she owned the place, planted herself in the chair across from my desk, and dropped a folder full of papers onto the mahogany surface. "Mr. Coldwell, I've been investigating the Hartwell case for the past 72 hours, and I've come across some interesting discrepancies. Such as the fact that you claimed to have been drugged, but the lab results from the hospital were inconclusive. Such as the fact that you had your security team tailing MS Hartwell for weeks before the incident. Such as the fact that your mother, a woman with significant influence in the city, has been contacting media outlets to suppress any negative coverage of you." She leaned forward. "It looks to me like you've been orchestrating a smear campaign against a vulnerable pregnant woman, and I've got the documents to prove it." I felt a cold knot form in my stomach. "Those documents are fabricated." "Are they?" She slid a sheet across the desk. "This is a sworn statement from your head of security, corroborating the timeline. This is a text message from your mother to a news director, threatening to pull advertising if they ran a story about the incident. This is a transcript of a phone call between your lawyer and MS Hartwell's attorney, in which he threatened to destroy her if she didn't settle." I stared at the evidence. It was all real. It was all things I'd done. but somehow it had been twisted into a narrative of a rich man abusing a poor woman. Miss Dempsey, I understand this looks bad, but you're missing the context. Melissa Hartwell attempted to defraud me. She drugged me. She falsely claimed pregnancy. Her father assaulted her, and You simply exposed it all to the press, she interrupted. You didn't do it to help her. You did it to protect your reputation, and that's the problem, Mr. Coldwell. You've been acting like the victim, but the evidence suggests you've been the predator all along. I opened my mouth to argue, but the words wouldn't come, because a part of me knew she was right. I had been ruthless, and I had been calculating. I had used every tool at my disposal to crush Melissa, not because I was seeking justice, but because I wanted to win. And now that ruthlessness was coming back to bite me. Later that evening, I received a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. David Coldwell? Who's asking? This is Ethan, Melissa's friend. We need to talk. My blood went cold. Ethan, the foreign boyfriend. The one who was supposed to show up only after Melissa had taken everything from me. The one who was supposed to inherit the company she'd stolen. What do you want? I want to make you an offer, he said. Melissa has been trying to destroy you, but I've been watching from the sidelines. Did I know the full picture? Did I know what she did to you? And I know what you did to her, but I also know that you're a smart man and you're not interested in revenge. You're interested in survival. So here's my offer. I'll testify against her. I'll give you all the evidence you need to prove she was running a long-term fraud operation. In exchange, you let me walk away clean, and retaliation, and exposure of my involvement. I paused. Why would you do that? Because she's crazy, he said flatly. And she's been threatening to expose me too. If I don't help her, I'm not going down with that ship. But I need your word that you'll protect me. You have my word. Good. Then meet me at the Riverbend Diner tomorrow at noon. I'll have everything. The Riverbend Diner was a greasy spoon on the outskirts of town, the kind of place where people met to do deals they didn't want anyone to see. I arrived early, took a booth in the back, and waited. Ethan showed up at exactly 12:05. He was tall, good-looking, with a kind of perfectly styled hair that screamed, trust fund. He slid into the booth across from me and dropped a thick manila envelope on the table. This is everything, he said. Bank statements, text messages, emails, recordings of her planning the whole scheme. She's been running this con for 2 years, ever since she found out you were wealthy. It wasn't just about the baby, that IT was about taking everything you had. I opened the envelope and started flipping through the documents. It was all there, the timeline, the collaborators, the financial trails. It was so comprehensive that I almost felt impressed. Why are you giving this to me? I asked. What's in it for you? I told you, she's crazy. She threatened to expose my role in this, and I'm not going to prison for her, but I also need you to understand something. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. You're not a good guy here, David. You did terrible things to her. You had her father arrested. You let her fall. You didn't even flinch when she lost the baby. She lost the baby because her father yanked her into a table. Maybe, but you didn't stop him. You didn't call for help until it was too late. You wanted her to lose that baby. Admit it. I couldn't deny it. She was trying to steal my life. She was trying to survive. She grew up with a monster for a father. She learned that the only way to get ahead was to manipulate. That's not an excuse, but it's a reason. He shook his head. You're not a victim, David. You're a victor, and victors don't get to play the moral high ground. I sat back, letting his words sink in. He was right. I'd been so focused on winning that I hadn't stopped to think about the cost. Melissa was a predator, yes. But she was also a product of her environment, and I'd used her environment against her without a second thought. What do you want from me? I asked. I want you to destroy her, he said, but I want you to do it clean. No collateral damage. No more smear campaigns. Just the legal facts. Let the courts decide. And you. I walk away. I've got a plane ticket to Europe. You never heard of me. We shook hands, and he slid out of the booth and disappeared into the afternoon crowd. I sat there for a long time, staring at the envelope, wondering what I'd just gotten myself into. The final showdown came 3 weeks later, at the courthouse. Melissa had lawyered up with a high-powered attorney who specialized in women's rights cases. The press was everywhere. The cameras were rolling. And I was on the stand, being grilled about every choice I'd made since the day I'd woken up in that penthouse. Mr. Coldwell, the prosecutor asked, is it true that you deliberately allowed Ms. Hartwell to suffer a miscarriage by not intervening? The fall was caused by her father, I said. I didn't cause it. I didn't allow it. You simply watched, she cut in. You watched her fall. You watched her bleed. And you waited until the paramedics arrived to do anything. Isn't that correct? Yes, but... And is it true that you had your security team stalk her? That you had her phone tapped? That you planted false evidence to make her father look worse than he was? I felt the walls closing in. I didn't plant anything. The evidence was real. He attacked her. He threatened me. He extorted me. But you didn't go to the police. You went to the press. You wanted to destroy her reputation, not seek justice. I opened my mouth to respond, but then I saw something that stopped me cold. Melissa was sitting at the defendant's table, her head bowed, her hands clasped in her lap. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the floor, and she was crying. Not the theatrical, manipulative crying I'd seen before. Real, silent tears that dripped onto her dress and left dark spots on the fabric. And I realized in that moment that I had become the villain. Not because I'd been wrong, but because I'd been so focused on winning that I'd forgotten the human cost. I took a breath, leaned into the microphone, and said, Your Honor, I'd like to offer an apology. The courtroom went silent. Melissa Hartwell did terrible things. She drugged me. She lied to me. She tried to steal from me, but I responded by doing terrible things in return. I didn't just expose her crimes, I exploited them. I used her trauma against her. I manipulated the press that I turned her into a monster, and I did it because I was angry, not because I was just. Melissa looked up, her eyes wide with shock. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I continued. I'm not asking for sympathy, but I am asking that we stop this cycle of revenge. I've already signed over a settlement to cover her medical expenses and provide for her future. I've also agreed to drop all counterclaims. All I want is for this to be over. The judge stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. That's a very mature position, Mr. Coldwell. I'll take it under advisement. In the end, the case was dismissed. Melissa walked out of the courthouse with nothing, but she also walked out without a criminal record. I kept my company, my reputation, and my peace of mind. But I knew I'd never forget the look on her face when I'd apologized. IT wasn't gratitude. IT wasn't forgiveness. It was the look of someone who'd spent her entire life being used by men, and for the first time, one of them had chosen to let her go. As for Ethan, he vanished, exactly as promised. I never heard from him again. And the floating text? It never came back. Maybe the narrator realized I'd broken the script. Or maybe I just stopped caring about the opinions of strangers on the internet. What I know for sure is this. I woke up as a different man and I left as one, too. Not a hero, not a villain, just someone who'd learned that winning isn't always the point. Sometimes the point is to stop playing. I thought it was over. That was my first mistake. 3 weeks after the courthouse, I was back in my office, reviewing quarterly reports, when my mother called. Her voice was tight, the kind of tight that meant she was holding back something explosive. David, you need to check your email, and then you need to sit down. I'm already sitting. Then brace yourself. I opened my inbox and found a message from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line read, **The truth about David Coldwell." * inside was a video file and a link to a website. I clicked the link and watched the video load. It was Melissa. She was sitting in what looked like a hotel room, speaking directly into the camera. Her face was composed, her voice calm. She wasn't crying. She wasn't angry. She was giving a statement. **, my name is Melissa Hartwell. You may have heard about my case against David Coldwell. What you haven't heard is the truth. David drugged me. He assaulted me. And when I became pregnant, he orchestrated a smear campaign to make me look like a gold digger. He had my father arrested on false charges. He manipulated the press. He even paid a man to testify against me that I have proof of all of it. And I'm releasing it today because I want justice. Not for myself, but for every woman who's been silenced by a rich man with a powerful lawyer. **. The video cut to a series of documents. Some of them I recognized, the emails from my mother to news directors, the transcripts of my calls with my lawyer. But there were also documents I'd never seen before, alleged hospital records, signed statements from people I didn't know, and a photograph that looked like me in a room with Melissa, but I'd never been in that room. It was all fake, but it was a convincing fake. My mother was still on the line. *David, this is already trending. Her website has crashed twice. The networks are running it as breaking news. Your stock price is dropping. I force myself to breathe. She's lying. Every single thing in that video is fabricated. I know that. You know that. But the public doesn't. And Melissa Hartwell is very, very good at playing the victim. I hung up and called Marcus. We need a counterstatement. Now. Every media outlet. Every platform. We need to show the real evidence. Marcus sighed. We can do that. But it'll take time. And in the meantime, the damage is done. She's already got the narrative. She's got a narrative built on lies. We have the truth. That's going to win. Truth doesn't always win, David. Speed wins. Emotion wins. And right now, she's got both. I spent the next 48 hours in crisis mode, press releases, legal motions, damage controlled, and I gave interviews, I posted statements, I even agreed to a live sit-down with a major news anchor. But no matter what I did, the story didn't die. Melissa had tapped into something bigger than the truth. She tapped into a cultural nerve. A rich man, a poor woman, an accusation that couldn't be proven false fast enough. And then came the second blow. My fiancée, Jessica, called me from her parents' house. She'd been away for 2 weeks, visiting family in another state. When I picked up, her voice was distant. David, I need to ask you something. And I need you to be completely honest with me. Of course. Anything. Is it true what she's saying? About the drugs? About the assault? I felt the blood drain from my face. Jessica, you can't be serious. You know me. You know I would never. I know what I see on the news, she said. I know what my friends are texting me. I know my parents are telling me to reconsider. And I need to hear it from you, not from a press release. I took a breath. She drugged me. She tried to extort me. She lied about everything. I have proof. I've shown you some of it already. I know, but she also has proof. Lots of it. And it looks real. It's not real. It's manufactured. Then, why does it look so convincing? I didn't have an answer for that, because I knew the truth. Melissa was a master of deception. She'd spent years perfecting her craft. And against that kind of skill, even the truth could look like a lie. I'll send you everything, I said. The real evidence. The emails, the receipts, the surveillance footage. I'll let you read it all, and then you can decide. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, okay, send it. But David, if I find out you've been hiding something, I'm gone. I mean it. I'm not hiding anything. I wasn't, but I was starting to realize that wasn't enough. 3 days later, I got another call, this time from Ethan. I told you I was out, he said, his voice strained. But she found me. She's threatening to release the recordings of our conversation if I don't help her. What does she want? She wants me to testify against you, to say that I was your accomplice, that we planned the whole thing together. That's insane. You were the one who gave me the evidence against her. Exactly, and that makes me the perfect witness for her side. She can claim I was your puppet, that I was coerced, that I only gave you that evidence because you threatened me. And I can't prove otherwise. I felt the walls closing in. So what do? We don't do anything. I'm leaving the country tonight. She can't force me to testify if I'm not here, but she's going to be furious, and she's going to take it out on you. Let her try. The next morning, I woke up to a new headline. Asterisk Coldwell's fiancé drops engagement ring. Sources say she's reconsidering everything. Asterisk. Jessica hadn't made a public statement, but someone had leaked the news, and I knew exactly who. I called her, and she answered on the first ring. I didn't talk to any reporters, David. I swear. I know. She leaked it. She's trying to drive a wedge between us. It's working. Jessica, please. I love you. I never lied to you. I never hurt anyone the way she's saying I did. I believe you, she said softly, but I also believe that you're in over your head. She's not going to stop. She's going to keep coming after you until you're destroyed, and I can't live like that. So, what are you saying? I'm saying I need space. I'm going to stay with my parents for a while, and when this is over, if it's ever over, we can talk. She hung up before I could respond. That night, I sat in my penthouse alone, staring at the city lights. The floating text hadn't appeared in weeks, which meant no one was reading the story anymore. Maybe the narrator had given up. Maybe the audience had moved on, but I was still here, still fighting. And then I received a message from a source I didn't expect. It was a former colleague of Melissa's, a woman named Donna, who'd worked with her at a retail store. She'd seen the news coverage and decided to contact me. Asterisk, Mr. Coldwell, I know Melissa that I worked with her for 3 years, and I have information that might help you, as she's been running scams like this for a long time. I have photos, emails, and a recorded conversation where she admitted to fabricating evidence against her ex-boyfriend. If you want it, I'll send it to you. And oh charge. I just want her to stop ruining people's lives. Asterisk. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. This was it. This was the evidence I needed to prove Melissa was a serial con artist. Send it, I typed back. And within an hour, I had a folder full of proof. The next day, I went on the offensive. I released everything Donna had sent me. The photographs, the emails, the recording of Melissa bragging about how she destroyed her last boyfriend. I also released the full transcripts of my conversations with Ethan, proving that he'd approached me, not the other way around. The media coverage shifted immediately. Suddenly, Melissa wasn't a victim. She was a predator. She'd been doing this for years. She targeted wealthy men, claimed pregnancy, and extorted money. And I was just the latest in a long line of marks. Within 48 hours, her website went dark. Her lawyer stopped returning calls. Her social media accounts were deleted. And she disappeared. I never saw her again, and I never heard from her again, but I did hear that she'd been arrested in another state, trying the same scam on a different wealthy man. This time, he'd had a private investigator on his payroll, and she'd been caught in the act. The case against her was airtight. She went to prison for fraud, extortion, and attempted blackmail. Jessica came back 2 weeks later. She sat across from me in my penthouse, looking tired but relieved. I'm sorry I doubted you, she said. I should have trusted you from the beginning. Don't apologize. She was good at what she did. She fooled everyone. She didn't fool your mother. No, I said with a small smile. She didn't fool my mother. Jessica laughed. The first genuine laugh I'd heard from her in weeks. Your mother is terrifying, but in a good way. She warned me. I didn't listen, and then I almost lost everything because of it. But you didn't. You won. I shook my head. I didn't win, I survived. There's a difference. Winning would have meant preventing all of this from happening in the first place, but I didn't. I reacted, I fought back, and I got lucky. That's not luck, she said. That's stubbornness. And I love you for it. We kissed. It was soft, tentative, like we were still figuring out how to trust each other again. But it was real. I never saw the floating text again. I never read another comment from those anonymous viewers. But I sometimes wondered what they would have thought if they'd seen the ending. The real ending, not the one they'd wanted. Melissa was gone. My company was intact. My relationship with Jessica was stronger than ever. And my mother had finally stopped worrying about me. But I knew I'd carry the weight of what I'd done for the rest of my life. Not because I'd been cruel, but because I'd been willing to be cruel. I'd turned her trauma into a weapon. I'd used her father's violence against her. I'd let her fall, and I'd watched her bleed, and I hadn't lifted a finger to help. I wasn't proud of that, but I also knew it was the only way I could have survived. So I made a promise to myself. Never again. Never again would I let anger drive me to that kind of ruthlessness. Never again would I use someone's pain against them. Never again would I confuse victory with justice. The next time I faced a threat, I'd handle it differently. That was the lesson I'd learned, and it was the only thing that made any of it worthwhile.